Wonderful. Denver, solve your QB problems by starting John Elway. Like, what are you talking about?
So Tyrod Taylor will not turn the ball over. Tyrod Taylor was the starter for the Giants. I knew we had a good team, and the Giants were a good team, and things like that. I mean, give me a break. It doesn't matter if Daniel Jones isn't playing. If Daniel Jones was playing quarterback, or Eli Manning was playing quarterback, or Jesus Christ himself was playing quarterback, they are still not winning this game.
Here we go. With the 9th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft.
Patrick Surtain, cornerback. Oh my God.
How many over?
Oh. Alex Leatherwood, Alabama tackle. A big reach. People felt that he would go.
Alex Leatherwood.
Quick feet kind of guy.
Hey, how's the form? It's Saturday night. My name is Michael McQuaid. We're live for the Crack Boys ahead of Week 8.
Thanks for having me. And I got to give a shout out to Brian O'Leary. Shot is shot. I don't know how you got my email.
The night after Super Bowl 55. By the way, folks, small chat.
The master at your work, eh?
I think you've earned that.
Orlando led better. The Orlando, the led, as Matt Ryan apparently called you, according to Michael on Friday. It's very, very, it's a warm welcome to London. Massively appreciate you coming on this morning. Mr. Cockerell, Mark, welcome in, my friend. You're here, you've made it. Duval,
David Duval, who played golf.
Jaguars, Duval.
Jets victory against the Cowboys.
Yes, Brian.
Hi, Monday Night Football, MNF IRE, Giants against Michael McQuaid here, joined by Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary. Welcome in, boys. It's the 1 year anniversary of the Irish NFL show. I want to take this opportunity just myself to thank everybody that's either watched the show, commented, loved or hated the show, whatever. It's been a hell of a year, and we're looking forward to the next one. But Colin, first off, welcome in. How are you getting on?
Good, but I realised something, Michael. We talk about the Madden curse. I think the Irish NFL show title credits curse might be worse. Good God, the litany of guys that have season-ending injuries or just terrible misfortune befall them. Truly Irish folklore tales. I just saw George Kittle appear there. I thought, and then Dak, and then various others. But outside of that, there's another ridiculous week. Plenty to talk about. The week of the backup would be the Von Miller trade and any number of season-ending injuries to really top players. So plenty to discuss on tonight's show.
Yeah, hi to Owen as well, as commented in happy first birthday, lads. Hashtag Niner Nation. Jimmy Garoppolo playing unbelievably last night. Brian, welcome in, my friend. No Mark tonight, so you're going to have to sub in for him as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mark has work commitments tonight, which is a shame really for Mark, because the Patriots have probably had their best win in arguably maybe a year and a half, and fair play to Mark. He called it. He went with them, and they turned up, and Mac Jones in particular had a really good game. But just to echo the point you made, Michael, throughout the weekend, and obviously again this evening, a year since we started the show, and it's been a great, eventful year for all of us, from where we were last year to where we've got to. But as you said, it's without the people watching the show and supporting the show, and people as well as sponsors who have helped us along the way, Trust, Matchbook, that have allowed us to push the show on. And there's plenty of stuff ahead as well, in the coming weeks and the coming months. Yep.
Absolutely. Ron's comment is saying nice jersey in the background comments. We don't have any comments yet about any countries. Indonesia, wasn't it? The other night, I can't remember. Or Philippines.
Philippines.
Absolutely. Let's just kick it off. Let's start talking about the game last night. For me, boys, honestly, in terms of entertainment value as a neutral, one of the games of the season. I loved watching it. The Titans against the Colts. Titans getting the win in overtime, 34-31. Carson Wentz messing up not once, but twice. We'll talk about Derrick Henry in a minute, but Colin, what was your thoughts on that game? Because the Titans at one point looked dead and buried.
Yeah, the Colts got off to a great start. They go 14 points up, and you'd have to say that the Titans showed great resolve in terms of getting back. But the Colts had a great opportunity when Taquan Lewis had he had the ball on and Ryan Tannehill interception, but he fumbled it as he went to the ground. Now, I don't know if he was injured and therefore he fumbled it, or if he fumbled it and saw it fall, got injured. But it was ridiculous. It was a huge turning point because on the next play, Tannehill hit AJ Brown, and from there it was the real kind of ding dong battle. It was a great game. It was really back and forth, but you'd have to say the Colts have had all sorts of issues this year, and in fairness, Carson Wentz hasn't been one of them, but he did not have a great game. And I mean, as it turns out, the throwing the interception for the touchdown was probably a better move than giving away a safety at that particular point in the game. And he did drives him down the field, and he got his now kind of throw it up and get the defensive pass interference, and they got it to overtime. But I thought the pick he threw in overtime was a really poor pick, and I thought the Colts could do it. I really thought they were set for it. So you'd have to say kudos to the Titans for the performance they pulling it out of the bag. As you said, we have plenty to discuss in relation to them coming up next.
I actually really like, Brian, the way that Frank Reich went out at the start and was so offensive and really, really went for it at the start of the game, and it made it for a neutral a great contest. Brian, we've got a comment from Porrick Joyce saying, you have to mention the Randy Bullock. Personally, I would sue the vet.
Well, bear in mind that Randy Bullock missed a gimme for the Bengals in week 1 last year versus the Chargers. There was, when he stepped up to make that field goal at the end, it did come across my mind as he got the Lear Roadie to put this one over. But fair play to him, it was a long one. But this game kind of played out exactly as I think we all kind of thought on Friday or throughout the weekend when we had discussed it on the show. I know yourself and Mark picked the Titans, yourself and Colin up the Colts, because we felt it was that type of game that would go back and forth. And Wentz struggled at the start of the season, and I read a report that he struggled at the start of the season when the pressure was on. Then the pressure was off, and he started playing reasonably well again. And then yesterday's game, pressure was back on, and he wilted towards the end. I'm not sure if that was the case, but the interceptions were quite poor. And yeah, like I get the point, and I agree with Colin. I think we discussed it offline today, which was he was trying to remove a potential safety, because if it's a safety, they have to punt the ball back. The game is over. So I can understand why he was trying to get rid of it. But I mean, it was a bananas play to try that interception, in particular with his left hand. But look, there's bigger things that have come from this game. Derrick Henry looked like he was injured, and for a long time it seemed like he wasn't going to come back in. I've seen a few Titans fans today say, why was he brought back in when he was injured? Well, they clearly didn't think he was injured enough to in terms of what was to progress today, in terms of unfortunately looking like he's going to potentially be out for the season, and now they're suggesting he might be back come January. But he actually took the snap on 3rd and 7, which led to the field goal to win the game. So he was in till the death. They were using him just as much as they would use him for any other game. So maybe they just didn't think the severity of the injury was going to be what they saw today. But we said on Friday, sorry, one more final point, Michael. We said on Friday this game was like the deciding of the division. If the Colts won with the games coming up, they could potentially have a chance to win the division. And if the Titans won, they stretched their lead to 3 games and it was too much. But with Henry gone, I'm not entirely sure that's the case because this team, I'd argue there's no player in the league outside of a quarterback. There's no player in the league, I think, that any team has so much reliance on than Derrick Henry. You can put one out there if you think there's someone, but for me, he's the most reliant player that for one team throughout the league outside of a quarterback situation. So I don't know. I think this loss is going to be monumental. They brought in Adrian Peterson, but he's no Derrick Henry. Let's be fair.
There's a comment there from @Patriots Feeder. Nearly impossible to tell that injury if you're close to breaking it. I'm not gonna lie. I nearly spat my lunch out when I heard the news earlier. I couldn't believe it. Going on what Brian said there, for me, Colin, Derrick Henry, in terms of his production, in terms of the way he can perform on any given Sunday, he's probably the best player in the NFL. Seriously, if I was going to choose a player, like in any position, because at the end of the day, you have so many quarterbacks. In terms of getting Derrick Henry, I would take him in any game, any team. I think it's a huge loss for the Titans, but the only thing they could say is if they get the January column and they get him back, even if he's a 70 or 80% and get him back to that point, at least they won yesterday and they have, let's be honest, they've got full control of that division now. Even if they've been in as a 4th seed, I think they take it now if they got him back for, I guess, the extra week as well, getting into week 18, week 19 in the playoffs.
Yeah, look, losing Henry is huge. I would say Aaron Donald might have a claim about his importance in terms of a non-QB, but Derrick Henry is undoubtedly enormously important, and he was on course for an incredible season. We talked about him a few weeks ago, the way in the influence he had, the fact that, his stats were in and around the Jim Brown type, which is phenomenal, and the job he was doing. So it's a huge loss. You never know how long, I suppose, it will take to come back. And in fairness to the Titans, we've seen players have big injuries, but adrenaline gets you through, and it's only after the game that you realize, just the impact that it had. I saw various things, and you'll always see bits and pieces on social media, but doctors saying that if he's rushed back, the chances of a reoccurrence are enormously high. So they would have to be, deep in the playoffs, I imagine, for them to really want to risk it. But for this Titans team, it's a huge loss, and I suppose it comes down to how will they respond. I don't know if Adrian Peterson is going to be it. The trade deadline is still there. The Denver Broncos are clearly in sales mode, so could Melvin Gordon be a potential to move? It'll be interesting to see how they respond. But it's at the midway point of the season to lose a focal point really of your offense is a huge blow, and it's for not just for the Titans, but I think for fans around the league. You don't want to see the best players out. You want to see, when you sit down to watch games on a Sunday, you want to see the best players playing. You want to see what Derrick Henry is capable for. You want to see somebody try and break that long-standing, 2,000 plus yards. I mean, when Adrian Peterson got so close, it was great to watch that and to watch the chase. So enormously disappointed to see Henry go out, but a huge blow for the Titans and their fans, obviously, in particular.
Where we've seen games where Henry hasn't performed for one reason or another, the offensive line for the Titans is greatly exposed. We saw it when they played the Jets a few weeks ago. They struggled, and Tannehill had a really bad day. And there's been other games where when Henry hasn't played well, the offensive line is struggling. And then in terms of controlling the ball, without Henry, they're ineffective at times without him there. So, and then I just looked today in terms of who's the next man up at the moment. So, it looks like Adrian Peterson is going to come in, but McNichols is the second running back there. He's had 7 carries for 38 yards this season, which to me basically means there is no second running back. It's all about Derrick Henry. So can they carry the load? Time will tell.
He's not. He's definitely not a washing machine or a dishwasher anyway. Let's see what happens. Ian Mulligan saying spot on with Henry take inevitable injury, whereas workload again pitches feeder. Just look what happened to Cam Newton. Same injury, I believe, affected his feet and quickness. Absolutely. And I think just for NFL fans as well, going on what you boys said, you want to see the best players play week in, week out. That's why I get annoyed when I see guys like JJ Watt going off injured. I want to see him play the full season, play to their maximum capacity. Let's look at the Jets and the Bengals. Just another weekly apology now to Jets fans. Look, I think to be fair to the Jets, their turnaround in the fourth quarter was stunning. Their quarterback is a stud. If I was Zach Wilson, I would be very concerned right now because those guys believe in him. Unbelievable performance last night. I have to hold my metaphorical hat off to the Jets. I'll never doubt them again. In fact, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to pick them on Thursday night. Sorry, just very, very quickly, Colin. I feel really bad for Carson Wentz. I felt horrible for him yesterday, especially that second time. He looked like he wanted to cry. Anyway, moving on. Bengals, Jets, that's some game.
Yeah, but this is a Jets team who lost by 41 points to the Patriots. So, talk about Jekyll and Hyde. This is a Bengals team that all of us, Peter King, lauded them as the team in the AFC. So I think this was an enormous shock, especially given the backup QB was playing. Now, Mike White had a phenomenal game, right? The only other QB who's thrown for 400 yards on their first start in the NFL, one Cam Newton. So he's in decent company, you'd have to say. And the Jets, they've played, at times really well for Robert Saleh, and they did a number on the Titans. I mean, this is the Jets against playoff teams are fantastic. One of the things that I did think was interesting was that Mike White is on the Jets because he lost out to Cooper Rush in the training camp for the Cowboys. And he also started yesterday because one Joseph Flacco, who only lives 95 miles from the Jets training facility, he told the Jets after they traded for him that he couldn't report until Friday. And so they ended up going with Mike White, and what a result. Certainly it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like there was, one play that sealed it. They were solid. They hung about. That goal line stand that they had when the Bengals were, on the 1 yard line, and they stood up to that. I think that showed their defensive prowess. Did they get lucky with that awful call, on helmet to helmet? Yes, they did. Absolutely. And that needs to be highlighted, and refs need to get better at that side of things. But they did a really good job overall on containing Chase. There was no deep targets, which was the first time in his young NFL career, but the first time to date that hasn't happened. So a brilliant day for the Jets, you'd have to say. And yeah, they certainly for right now, they should, Mike White can definitely bask in it, but he needs to show consistency if there's to be a QB controversy. But it would be quite the story. But look, it's one performance. He's got to show it. He'll have another opportunity in their next game.
On the show at the weekend, we were I made the point that I felt that if there was any way that the Jets were going to find a way to win this game, I certainly think it would come from a quarterback who throws for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. First time a Jets quarterback has done that since Vinny Testaverde back in 2000. But I did say, and I suggested that front seven for the Jets is going up against a bad offensive line, and the interior in particular, Garman, the right tackle, right guard is playing injured. He's a rookie, he's struggling, and the other guys haven't been much better. And if they got to Burrow, and they did get to Burrow quite a few times, and he struggled. And some other little footnotes, like Colin, you suggested about that goal line stand. That goal line stand only happens because their wide receiver, the rookie, chased down the interception for 80 yards and got your man down at the 1 yard line. I mean, other players would have given up on that particular play, but he didn't. He went back and look what happens. I mean, you don't even punch it in. And then the play calling as well by Zach Taylor at times, like that one for the interception. I mean, they literally went away from the run game, and then he's punting. He's going up against a team, and what's the Jets? And people say the Jets aren't a good team. They still move the ball all day long on the Bengals, and they punted with like a minute and a half, 2 minutes to go on the Jets 50. But you're punting to a team who's moving the ball up and down. It's not like you're punting to a team who hasn't moved the ball all day. You'll take your chance you'll get the ball back. So some of the decisions for Zach Taylor yesterday, his coaching, I thought were a bit unusual. And that's 3 road games in a row for the Bengals. Maybe they were just coming. I'm not suggesting tiredness or anything, but it does catch up on you when you're on the road for 3 weeks in a row. And maybe having taken a lead with 11 points up towards the back end of the fourth quarter, they felt it was done and complacency set in. And for the Jets, they always find ways to have these unusual results, but they have to build on it. And Thursday night's going to be a tough game because, as you said, Colts will be looking to rebound off a difficult loss. So see what comes in Thursday's game.
A great day yesterday in New Jersey for the Jets. I really liked how the team played for Robert Saleh, but more so seeing the relationship between the players, both offense and defense, with Mike White and Robert Saleh as well. Time will tell how they get on. Jamar Chase looks unbelievable. Browns, Steelers, gentlemen. Steelers 15, Browns 10. Another game that I pick and the incorrect team wins. Colin, for a lot of this game, I actually thought that the Browns would grind the victory out, but regardless of Big Ben's talent or the current situation he's in, the Steelers still find a way to get over the line, both on the run game and on the pass game.
Yeah, the offensive line is definitely coming together, and Mike Tomlin is Mike Tomlin. And they also did it without a kicker for most of the game, given what happened. I think if that had been an actual QB who got hit that late, it definitely would have drawn a flag. But non-QBs definitely.
Why wasn't there a flag? Have they come out and say why it wasn't a flag? A defensive player outside the tackle box?
Because he wasn't a QB. Because non-QBs get treated differently. You know, it's
let's be fair.
They knew what they were doing. But this is why, and just like the Jets game, like, this was a wild weekend of football, right? This is why we love this sport, because there are so many upsets. And because I've said it time and time again, you're picking the game. It's a 50-50 chance and anything can happen. And this game, you could play it, 100 times and the Steelers might win it, 75 times, but 25 times the Browns could win the game. They didn't, and now as a result, I think there are big questions because they're very disappointing. I particularly Jarvis Landry, who said this was a must-win game, and then proceeded to have a really bad game. But you're left with the question: Are you going to pay Mayfield all that money, and what impact is that going to have? Thing we'll get to see pretty quick, because the 5-3 Bengals await the Browns in Cincinnati next week. So it doesn't get any easier for the Browns. And at this stage, given where they're at, you're almost looking at the second half of the season being a kind of almost every game being a playoff game. So we're really going to get to see what Kevin Stefanski, who I really like as a head coach, has done really well up to now, but now he's got to really prove it in the second half of the season.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it there, Colin. Like Baker Mayfield, like I know he played, and we're going to suggest he was injured, but they're going to pay this man in the region of $35 million, and because he's being compared to that rookie draft class of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. And like they've gone and won games like this. This is the type of game he needs to be winning. I picked the Steelers because I felt the Steelers defense was coming together as well, and I felt that they would shut down this Brown offense like they pretty much did in the run game. Chubb was ineffective. Ernest Johnson got the touchdown. Mayfield doesn't throw for a touchdown. He doesn't throw for anything more than 24 yards in the game. Odell Beckham is non-existent. Someone tomorrow, if the Browns could offload him tomorrow in the trade deadline, they'd happily do so and get rid of $60 million after a salary cap. I mean, Landry didn't look anything. So I just don't get it. I just don't get this Browns. I certainly don't get Baker Mayfield, and people just say, he's injured, he's not playing well. I wouldn't be giving him that type of money because they're the type of games you have to win. Come on, stand up. You're the quarterback. You're the one that's gone on all week about how you're ready to play because you want to get out there and show the team. You could argue Case Keenum probably would have done a better job yesterday, or certainly would have been, a game any different in terms of what the score was. In fact, I think the score was actually 15-10 because of the situation with the kicker. The kicker wasn't there. They had to go for a 2-point conversion on a touchdown, which Big Ben was rolling back the years. Unfortunately, it was pulled back on a hold. So the game really should have been a little bit more secure for the Steelers. It's a big one for Steelers, in fairness, because they've been getting a lot of stick, at the early stage of the season, but they're coming along nicely, and they've had some good, solid wins against Seattle and this game. So I don't know who the Steelers have next week, but they just continue going about their business. It just again shows how good of a head coach Mike Tomlin is.
Bears next week, Monday Night Football. Nice game.
At home?
Game is in. It's at home, yeah. I enjoyed watching this game in Red Zone last night because there was always something going on. I really enjoyed the Chris Boswell incident. I mean, really? Come on. Who thought that was a good idea?
It's
Seriously.
funny because, sorry, Michael, I thought when I saw it at first, I thought it was a muff, like a muffed snap or, whatever. He didn't get it. And then Mike Tomlin actually openly says after the game, "Yeah, I wanted to go for a fake, and it was a bad call by me. I put my hands up and said." Like the impact of that play wasn't just okay, we didn't score. It was like we lost our kicker and potentially could have lost the game. And the other team was on the other side who could play better than the Cleveland Browns.
He got beat big time. It was funny to watch.
I think that's a little bit. I mean, you're talking about huge rivalry, and I think, in fairness to the Browns, we'll get to see what they're made of second half of the season. For the Steelers, it really was drawing on the experience of Tomlin and of Big Ben and their kind of core strengths. It's interesting if you look at Tomlin's tenure. The kind of earlier parts of his time there with the Steelers, it was on the defense. The offense wasn't kind of throwing it out. It was ground and pound. And obviously then over the past few years, prior to last year, the Steelers were much more explosive. But this year they're back to maybe early Mike Tomlin identity. But you have to say that they have a wealth of experience. They have some great players on defense. I won't be too harsh on the Browns because it is kind of a local derby, and Myles Garrett's comments may have given the Steelers some extra motivation. But this is what's fascinating. We're going to see in the second half of the season what both of these sides are made of. But when you've Mike Tomlin going into battle, that's a nice edge to your sword.
Also a comment there from Ron, just a rhetorical point saying Tomlin, 0 losing seasons, never count him out. I'm not going to count either team out. It's early in the season. It'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. 49ers, Bears. 49ers beating the Bears in Chicago, 33-22. Jimmy Garoppolo, over 300 yards passing, 2 rushing touchdowns. Eli Mitchell, 137 yards. And the Bears, on that hand, Fields 175 yards, obviously with that rushing touchdown, that great play. And yeah, boys, I liked. All right, I know what everyone's going to say here, so I'm just going to say it. I'll just go on. Jimmy G, man, yesterday. I liked the 49ers yesterday, Colin. I thought it looked good.
They looked adequate. They beat a bad Bears team. I mean, look, fair play. Jimmy G, and look, the two rushing touchdowns, which I'm sure he certainly enjoyed, given that Trey Lance was brought in to be the threat on the ground. But no, look, Jimmy G had a good game. You can only beat what's in front of you. It helps when Deebo Samuel is having himself a season. He's just been absolutely fantastic. He's everywhere. You'd have to say that the Bears missed Mac. Certainly, they really didn't get any sort of pressure on Jimmy G. He could kind of have his way, and he absolutely did. Justin Fields looked much more comfortable, and allowing him to use his athleticism helped him. So, you would think that you would look to play to your young QB's strengths. It felt like they went a little bit more in that direction yesterday. But the Niners needed that, given the division they're in. I see Russell Wilson has had the pin removed. The Rams have made a big move that we'll talk about later. So the NFC West, the second half of the season for the NFC West is going to be very interesting indeed.
The game in many ways played out the way I expected. I didn't think it'd be as high scoring as it was, but like we did suggest that this game could be nip and tuck, and it'd be. I think we suggested the 49ers. I know, Colin, you picked the Bears, but like the rest of us could have felt that the 49ers would put away in the fourth. And to a certain extent, that's kind of how it played out. I felt the turning point in the game was that 80-yard run by Deebo Samuel, which initially looked like he'd gone in for the touchdown because the Bears had them at 3rd and 20 on that particular play. Excuse me. And I thought the heart of the Bears defense just seemed to go after that play. It was a crushing moment, like for any team to have a team at 3rd and 20 deep in their own towards their own goal line, and to give up a first down is demoralizing. But to give up an 80-yard play, and they went in on the touchdown, and from there on, every time the coverage, I know we were all kind of flipping between games, between red zone and stuff. So every time I went back, it just seemed then that the 49 seemed to be going on these like consistent drives, and Jimmy G was rolling back, rolling into touchdowns. But up to that point, I thought the Bears were well in the game. Like I wouldn't think the 49ers are walking away from this game going, that's a fantastic win for us, and it's a turning point in the season. They did enough, which most of us felt they would, and I think Justin Fields gradually starting to show the player that a lot of people felt he would be. That touchdown was, to be honest, the high point of the game.
I was actually just going to bring that in next. I don't know what to think about that touchdown. I went through the emotions last night where I thought it was stunning, thought it was sensational. And then I thought it was like playing a 10-year-old in FIFA that just keeps pressing square to tackle. Like, I mean, some of the turns were incredible. Jesus, lads, like some of the 49ers are going nowhere near him. Like it looked a bit like RG3 back in the day, just running around. Look, it was great. You can't do that every play every week,
You can't, Michael. What's missing in all that great play is how poor the offensive line was, because he was running around like a madman trying to escape every player that was coming at him. Where was the offensive line? And Bears fans have been calling this out for months on end, even leading up to the draft, that they needed to, get solid players in. Obviously, we touched on it on the show the weekend. Jenkins, the second round pick, is gone for the season before he's even played a snap. Like, as you said, the week before that in Tampa against a better defense, arguably a better defense, the Bucs were able to take care of him. So, that, as you said, he'll get away with it this week. He won't get away with it next week. Certainly not against the Steelers defense in particular, I think.
Let's jump forward and look at that Saints-Bucs game. Column on the 18th of December 2016, I paid the guts of £2,000 or £3,000 to go and watch Trevor Siemian quarterback the Broncos against Tom Brady and the Patriots. Didn't work out for Trevor Siemian that day, but my God, did it work out for the Saints last night. Here is another game that had everything, and I know, Colin, you have something that you want me to play, so if you want to maybe tee it up in a couple of seconds, I will.
Yeah, well, this was the Jameis revenge game, and we knew he was up for it, that he wanted to get the win against the Bucs. But obviously he went down with a serious knee injury, and Sean Payton went to the podium afterwards and was asked, how was Jameis? And well, he announced that it was serious, and that as far as he knew, Jameis was on crutches. And then as Joe Judge found out the other week, his player had other ideas.
And he's on crutches right now.
I genuinely thought, Colin, that was from a couple of months ago. I did not think that was from a live Instagram video.
No, that was live in the dressing room. Jameis enjoying himself. He was on crutches, as you can see, but using them as a bit of a prop, making the most of it. Look, you'd have to say that it was a great performance from the Saints, and in fairness to Brian, he had said that he felt that they could do a number. Sean Payton is a great coach. He's hyper aggressive a lot of the time, but he is a very good coach. What stood out to me though, this is not to say the Bucs could easily still win the Super Bowl, but this was the first game I've watched where Brady looked old. And I know he'll bounce back, and undoubtedly he's going to go on to have brilliant performances. But this was the first inkling to me when he threw that pick six. You could see that the ball didn't do what he wanted it to do, and the hand-eye coordination just slipping just a millisecond. Look, he'll be back on the Tom Brady diet. It'll all get sorted out. He'll be fine. But proof that even he isn't immortal, that Father Time will ultimately remain undefeated. But for the Bucs, maybe a timely wake up call for them, for the Saints, for Trevor Siemian, and for a number of the backup players. You'd have to say really, really good performance. It wasn't like Siemian came in with, kind of 3 minutes left to go and kind of had to seal the deal. No, he had to play throughout, and I thought they were very impressive on the day. Bucs still favourites for that division, though.
Yeah, my alarming point on the book wasn't necessarily the Brady situation. I do kind of agree with Colin on that. It was more the defense, because when Trevor Siemian comes into the game, like, let's be fair, it's not going to be throwing the ball and having an expansive offense up and down the field. They rushed it 32 times in the game for 150 yards, predominantly screen and runs all night. Against the Bucs defense that's been quite strong against the run, and they just couldn't stop them throughout the game, even towards the end, was they got in front. The Bucs, I think everybody felt that they're just going to go down on them again, because they just couldn't stop them. Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator, has had success at Saints against Brady. I said it in the show at the weekend. Last year, they only gave up 26 points to them, 3 of which was in Tampa. The other 23 was in week 1. And that playoff game was, for me, it was all on its head because of the amount of turnovers in which the Saints did, and predominantly not them, were down to Breeze more so than any other player. So they just seem to find a way when they play the Bucs. I don't think it should be underestimated. Like the celebrations, we saw that when they played down in Tampa last year when the Saints put a number on them, because it shouldn't be underrated how the rivalry between these two teams. I know Bucs fans and Saints fans, and they take great pleasure in when they beat each other. So it didn't come as a surprise. He is gone for the season, by the way. I don't know if you saw the breaking news this evening. He is definitely gone. So for the Saints to continue, I think the Saints have a fair crack at a playoff spot with wild card. I'm surprised I'm saying that, because at the start of the season I felt they were going to completely fall off the cliff. But they need to get Taysom Hill back, because he can play quarterback, and once he's not a fantastic quarterback, he stepped in last year for a few games when Breeze was there, and he did a reasonably good number. And he's the kind of player that can open up the offense in terms of the playbook, because he's good with the legs and he could throw the ball as well.
Well, there's a QB who's 5-0 in with the Saints, and probably available. I'd say if the Saints want to put a phone call in to George Payton and the Broncos, they might be willing to trade Teddy Bridgewater. But if Jameis is out for the season, might be worth having a look at that. You would also have to say kudos to Sean Payton bringing Mark Ingram back. I think having that 1-2 punch. We talked about Alvin Kamara, and the fact that he'd been seeing more of the ball hadn't actually helped him. Having Mark Ingram there to act as the 1-2 punch really helped, I think, and was a really smart move.
I'll just make one more point. Sorry, Michael. The secondary for the Saints, I thought was really, really good yesterday. Mike Evans had 2 catches in the game. The 46-yard touchdown, which was great, and the other catches for 6 yards. Like Grayson scored a touchdown, and Johnson went missing on a couple of plays for the interceptions. They were using different players yesterday, the Bucs, but the secondary for the Saints stepped up, and obviously it was capped off with the interception. So it's a big win for the Saints.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed the Cyril Grayson touchdown. It was class from Brady. Like, honestly, like, it was just class to watch. Yeah, obviously, that Saints defense looks great. Saints sitting 5-2. Teddy Bridgewater, absolutely. Give him a call. They'll pay the wages. So
maybe they'll take Drew Lock instead.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sure that's tongue in cheek now, guys. There's no suggestions this evening, is there, that there's going to be a trade in the offing, is there?
Well, I don't see why not. We'll get to, like, why would you let Von Miller go? Why would he be the only one? If Von is going, there should be a fire sale.
Well, sorry, I know we're going to get to it, right? And I know we want to discuss other games, so don't let's linger too long on it. I don't understand why the trade has happened. You're 4-4. If the Chiefs win tonight,
Brian, we'll get to the Broncos game too.
All right.
Okay.
Patriots, Chargers. Patriots get the win 27-24. And you were talking there at the start about Mac Jones. 218 yards, no passing touchdowns, but still an impressive performance. I was more concerned about Justin Herbert. He fell off in the second half of that game, boys. For me, I still think it'll be an LA Super Bowl column. But I obviously have been for the Patriots.
Yeah. Well, the AFC, who knows? Nobody seems to want to take control of the AFC. The Bill Belichick has done a number now on Herbert in the past couple of games, and this is a Patriots team that started 1-3, and they're 3-1 since then. So they are coming along. They're not there yet, but they're certainly playing complementary football. And they had a plan yesterday. It was the ultimate kind of Belichick plan scheme for a particular opponent. They held the ball. They had 1 7-minute drive. I think they held the ball for 10 minutes longer than the Chargers overall. They just exploited every weakness, and the Chargers couldn't really respond. They got the touchdown late on to kind of make it seem closer, but it never felt like it was going to get away. Like, the Chargers started well, but once the Patriots got back into it, it felt like the Patriots kind of had control over it. I'm really interested to see what the Chargers do to kind of respond, but you have to say it was certainly a disappointing day for Herbert, for his receivers. I didn't think he got a whole lot of help from his receivers, but Bill Belichick proves his defensive guile once again.
In many ways, I know they got a little bit more points in terms of what I suppose again compared to what they got when they went to Baltimore 2 weeks ago before the bye week, the Chargers. But it was very similar. Like, Mike Williams was taken out of the game in Baltimore, and he got taken out of the game yesterday. It was like Belichick said, right, it's Keenan Allen and it's Mike Williams. Let's get rid of that deep threat. Mike Williams only had 19 yards in the game. Keenan Allen had 77, but they were all 10 yards, 15 yards. We're saying, right, let them play down the middle, take away the deep threat, and seeking to beat us with Eckler as well at running back. And we touched on the show how inefficient the Chargers defense has been against the run, and whilst the numbers weren't staggering compared to other games, like Harris still ran for 80 yards, touchdown. It was just, as you said, it was just a perfect Bill Belichick type of game. Methodical drives, take the deep threat away, let them seeking to beat us under center, short yards. It was never going to work. And I wasn't that sold on the Chargers. I was more sold on the Raiders. I picked the Raiders to go to the playoffs than the Chargers because I still don't see. I just think their teams are so Jekyll and Hyde. Everybody expected them to win yesterday. They didn't. And there's more difficult games to come for them. And these are the type of games, if they are going to make a play to win the division, they need to be winning those type of games, because if the Chiefs play the Patriots at some stage during the season, or the Raiders, I'd imagine they might be able to take care of them. But anyway, we'll see. There's always unusual results, as we know, this weekend.
Time will tell. Big shout out to Patriots Feeder, putting loads of comments, and appreciate it, man. He's saying the Patriots could have won by 20 more points if Mac didn't have a bad week in practice. Let's see what happens. Patriots sitting 4-4. I like the way this Charger team's going even after yesterday. This is going to get them better, boys. They're never going to have a better chance to win the AFC West. That's a whole conversation for a different time. Very quickly, who the hell picked the Lions? Because I can't remember.
Me and Mark did.
Jesus Christ.
We got caught up in the I'm going to say Jekyll and Hyde. We got caught up in the Lions played well a couple of weeks back, and then they went and played the Bengals, and everybody went, oh, the Lions are turning a bit of a corner. And Mark picked them that week, and they got their doors blown off them at home. Then they go to LA, and they play reasonably well again, and they put it up to the Rams. And then people, including myself, buy into, oh yeah, he's getting a turn out of his team, and they get the doors blown off them. They're certainly the weakest team in the NFL. I never thought that'd be the case. I thought the Texans would be the weakest team, but they are the weakest team. Yeah. And Goff is.
Well, here's the thing: could the first franchise to go 0-16 in 2008 be the first franchise to go 0-17? Not exactly a record you'd want to have, but a record that they could potentially have. Now, it's any given Sunday, but you'd have to say when Lions fans are calling for the backup QB, you've a real problem with Jared Goff, and you get why they're doing it. I saw a good tweet from Chris Burke who said the bye week opens as a 13.5-point favorite over the Lions, which kind of sums up where they're at. And Jalen Hurts and the Eagles score 40 points for the first time since Super Bowl 52.
Yeah, I saw that
Hurts
point.
looking like an MVP last night, Brian. Look, I'll ask you this right now. Yes, no question. Will the Lions go 0-17? I know you've sort of touched on it there. The Lions have got one game that they could win, and it's against the Broncos in early December. I'm going to say yes, they're going to go 0-17.
I'll go no, but I don't think the win will come against the Broncos. I think they will beat somebody else along the way.
What were you calling? Do you think? Yeah.
If Jared Goff is the starter, if they don't do something, they will go 0-17.
Be ironic if they won that game because that is their 17th game, that Broncos game. Bills, Dolphins. Bills get the win 26-11. Only really half the story. This game was quite tight until mid to the end of the third quarter. The Dolphins, I think, personally done really well to keep the Bills at bay. Tua fighting for his life. Cole Beasley, deleted that Twitter account, is doing very well for himself. 110 yards receiving, no touchdowns. But Colin, the Bills getting the win, moving to 5-2, starting to improve in that division, albeit it took time for them to perform yesterday.
Yeah, it really did take time for them to get going. And it wasn't a wonderful game, you would have to say. Probably the most entertaining thing was when the mics picked up the players smack talking one another, which no love lost between the Bills and the Dolphins, you can safely say. That was like Conor McGregor versus Khabib, but some of the comments that were going on there, they really don't like one another. But the Bills found a way, and they did enough, and their defense, still, you'd have to say, still kept them in it in until they got enough going on offense. That's the issue with division games; they can sometimes be really tough. So. But the Bills had put previous beatdowns on the Dolphins. The Dolphins needed a response and got something of a response. But for the Dolphins, like the Lions are obviously bad. The Texans are bad. I see a lot of Dolphins fans being very, very fed up because no matter how well they seem to play or what they seem to do, they just cannot seem to get a win outside of a Damian Harris fumble.
Yeah, and all these games in which they've lost large amounts of those games they've been in. I can't believe the fumble. Here we go. They've been in the games going into the fourth, and like the last 2 weekends in particular before this game, they lost in London on a field goal, and they lost against the Falcons on a field goal. But the Bills, it was one of those games, like, it was back and forth and it was very low scoring, but I don't think anybody genuinely thought that the Dolphins were going to pull it off. 16 unanswered points in the fourth quarter by the Bills. When it needed, when they needed scores, Josh Allen was getting the score, and that one to Gabe Davis was quite unusual. Bearing in mind he was nearly getting the helmet taken off him. And interesting enough, I noticed that Brian Flores was reading through it today. An hour and 15 minutes after the game, before he came to his press conference, he allowed his players to do the press conferences for us, which is unusual in the NFL because it's always the head coach that steps up first to the podium. So he left the media waiting an hour, the bones of an hour and a half. And when he was asked why, he said he was evaluating how he coached the game today. So it sounds like there's a lot of tough conversations on the way in Miami. And I know Mark touched on it last week about potentially him being the next head coach to go. It wouldn't come as a surprise if it is to be him. But who knows, maybe they'll stick with him and there's more of a long-term plan there. But, I mean, they've gone from a team last year that was on a crest of a wave and nearly making the playoffs to, as you touched on there, potentially being a team that hasn't won a game all year.
Absolutely. Look, I'm going to do my best Skip Bayless impression. How about them Cowboys 6-1? And I have to give it to Dallas last night. The performance of, I can't remember the guy's name, Rush or something? Cooper Rush is to be admired. I was flicking between that and the World Series. And go Braves, by the way. That was a massive one last night. And look, I thought because Dak Prescott didn't start, I genuinely thought the Cowboys would lose this game based on that. The reality is, last night Dalvin Cook was held to under 100 yards rushing. He's held to under 80 yards rushing.
He wasn't
And
given the
Cooper
ball.
Rush, yeah. Well, Cooper Rush gets the job done. That is Colin, that's a hell of a win for a Cowboys team that maybe did not. I mean, some of the fans might not have had a massive expectation last night. Then again, they are Cowboys fans, so they probably do. Would you start Dak next week?
If he's fit, I would, because if he's 100% fit, but he's got to be right. If he isn't, then then don't, because Cooper Rush, they had a night grew into the game as it went on. But in fairness, let's remember that the Cowboys weren't just missing; they had injuries at tackle, they have injuries at linebacker. Micah Parsons has been fantastic. I mean, I think you're talking about Parsons as clearly the forerunner for me in Defensive Rookie of the Year. And you saw that both of the Joneses were waiting for him as he made his way to the locker room last night. He was everywhere. He was fantastic. I wonder if others will kind of regret passing over him and going for the corners rather than Micah Parsons, because he's certainly having a huge impact. The Cowboys, we talked about before, serious business. You heard also the talk about the debate between CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper on that final play, and City wanted the ball and Cooper said no way, so exerting his WR1 status. But for the Cowboys, they get the win, and yeah, they will be big favorites against the Broncos next week.
What were the Vikings doing last night? I mean, I've been reading articles throughout the day on the Vikings, on Zimmer, on the offensive coordinator. They hardly gave the ball to Cook. They were 1-13 on third downs. They held their defense did their job. They held the Cowboys, an explosive Cowboys offense, with a different quarterback. They held them to 20 points. They've been putting up over 43 games in a row. They're first and goal with 3 minutes to go, and the 5-yard line, they can't punch it in. They're not handing the ball to Cook all night. They're going with bootlegs when there's nobody open. I mean, even the commentators were saying it. Nobody could understand the play calling last night. It was bizarre. Zimmer calls a timeout. Then he calls another timeout. He forgets that he's just called a timeout, and he gets them flagged because you can't call 2 timeouts in a row. I mean, it's just madness. And then on the last drive, like, the Cowboys, fair play. That was a great, fairness to Cooper Rush. It was a great touchdown, which he threw to the back of the end zone. It was a perfect throw, because if he doesn't catch it, it's going, it goes out and he take the field goal. But when they got into the 25-yard line, 30-yard, they were doing checkdowns to Zeke. They were accepting the field goal to go into overtime. And the Vikings players gave up like a 3rd and 13 or something like that. They couldn't even tackle. It was just that Vikings team. Like, Mark's not here tonight, but he's always said it. You just can't trust them. We picked them, and you just can't trust them. It's a great win for the Cowboys, because you're right, going into that game, a lot of people, once Dak was out, everybody felt that they wouldn't win the game, including myself. But if you're a Vikings fan, you must be just pulling your hair out as to why Zimmer's still the coach, in my opinion.
If they can put 20 up against Minnesota with Rush a quarterback, great job done by him in the circumstances, regardless of the other circumstances in the game. Dak Prescott should take a week off. Like, I'm being.
Yeah, but it's not as straightforward as that, Michael. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, but the NFL, like we saw with the Jets, like, look what they did. The Broncos are 4-4. Like, they're not completely.
The other thing for the Vikings, alongside all of the issues on coaching that Brian has outlined, Daniil Hunter is now out for the season. So a huge loss to what had been the most effective pass rush in the league, but losing him to a torn pec, that's a significant loss and might well cost Mike Zimmer his job.
A couple of games got out of hand there yesterday. The Rams going up against the Texans, that game was over 30 seconds in. But obviously, Texans come back, score 22 points. And the Seahawks, Jaguars, how wrong was I? I was just flabbergasted and I guess sort of Randy Bullocked by Trevor Lawrence's hair. Beautiful hair. 31-7. Jaguars never even looked in it. And the Seahawks starting to build a little bit of momentum now. The pins off Russell Wilson's hand. Anything to add in those games, Colin?
I think you could have a debate about who the worst team is in the NFL. I don't think you can debate who the worst coach is. Or it's Urban Meyer. He is completely out of his depth. He doesn't have an iota. He hasn't a clue. They get the touchdown, down 24 points. They get the touchdown and they kick the extra point. They don't go for the 2 points. And then they try an onside kick. Like, what was the point of that? Like, he completely lost his place. He doesn't have an ocean. We already know he likes to hang out in bars, not get on the plane. For some reason, he wasn't in the locker room in London. The sooner they get rid of him, the better. He needs to go back to the college game. He is a disaster, and he is going to drag that franchise even further into the mire unless they can get rid of Urban Meyer.
Pardon the pun, Colin. There's not a lot really to say on that. I felt the Seahawks would win. I wasn't sold on the Jags because they beat a poor Dolphins team and they're traveling across the country. The only thing I actually took for the game was the commentators were criticising Moyer for going for the fourth down at the end instead of taking a field goal, because if they didn't get a score, they were going to get blown out, and no head coach should get blown out. But you're right, Colin. He's not the right man, and he'll be back playing college coaching gig next year, and probably in LSU, which looks like it's an obvious candidate for him. And on the other game, Michael, the only thing I could say on that game is if you're a betting man. And I'll make it very clear, I didn't take the handicap on the Rams, which was 16.5 points. At halftime, you're saying, if you're singling on it, you're counting your money. And at the end, you're pulling your hair out because they won by 16 points. And that means the Texans covered the number. But score doesn't really do it justice. It was cakewalk.
Let's package this last game in with the current news as well. Broncos beating the Washington football team. There's not really much you can say about that game. I don't think I don't really want to talk about the game. If you want to talk about the game, Colin, go on ahead. It's fine.
Yeah, I do. I do want to talk about it, Michael, because the Broncos have had some bad quarterbacks in the last 5 years. Okay, and I've paid to see Jeff Driscoll, Brandon Allen, Joe Flacco. They've had some really atrocious quarterbacks play in Mile High. Nobody has been as bad as Taylor Heineke. He is awful. He is just a terrible QB. He's probably a lovely person. He clearly has a lot of guts, a lot of heart, but he has no idea how to play the quarterback position. I have never seen anybody with less positional sense, less sense of where the rush was coming from. Horrific. Awful. The Broncos absolutely blessed that they were playing the Washington football team yesterday. Vic Fangio has got all the luck this year in the way it has worked out. Let's just talk about the month of October, okay, for the Washington football team. October 2021, a 1-4 record. The DEA raided the facilities. The Washington Post reported on the hush money that was paid to former employees. The Sean Taylor debacle around retiring his jersey number. The leaked Bruce Allen emails, and now Congress is involved. An unmitigated disaster, a franchise that just why the owners, why Roger Goodell are defending Dan Snyder in what is a storied franchise, a franchise with some great history. They cannot move on quickly enough from that guy. They are just terrible. They don't even, only one team in the league also is below 80% in capacity through the first half of the season. The Washington football team, who are averaging 62% of their tickets being sold, there is nothing going on in Washington. They are circling the drain, and they were awful to watch yesterday. It was an awful game. The Broncos weren't much better. That the way in which the Broncos closed it out was just embarrassing for all concerned. And just to put it into perspective, again, another one about Washington, some stats from Ryan O'Halloran. Washington ran 19 plays inside the Broncos' 30-yard line yesterday. They totaled 17 yards on those. 11 of them went for no gain, negative yards, or were a turnover. Where do you begin with how bad Washington are?
I know you want to get onto the Miller trade today. Maybe some people haven't even heard the news yet, but we'll come to it. The Tyler Heineke piece there that he's the worst quarterback, whatever. I can't recall exactly what your final words were on a column, but same guy that went into Lambeau last week and went up and down the field on that Packers defense and had 4 red zone opportunities, and look, he didn't score, but he's not the worst quarterback. There's worse quarterbacks around in the league.
He's the worst quarterback I've seen in Mile High. Absolutely. And that's what I'm talking. The worst quarterback I've seen play in Mile High. And those stats yesterday tell a story.
Okay.
There
was a poor game by both teams yesterday.
Kendall Hilton.
Well, there was that
didn't get the start as a quarterback because they put Philip Lindsay as wildcat.
If I was Coach Rivera, and I'm not saying it because I want to get him out of my division, because actually at the time it looked like he could have been potentially someone that the Giants would consider, and obviously there's financial aspect that comes with every contract. But for me, he should be trying to find a way out of that franchise because he is deserving of a proper franchise. He was at Carolina for a long time. I know he's beat them in the Super Bowl, but he was great. He was a coordinator with the Bears before that. Before he went to Carolina, he had a very good tenure there. They moved on from because they felt the time was right. Sometimes that isn't the right thing to do, as we've seen with Tom Coughlin moving on. But I think he would, if he was to be free tomorrow, come the end of the season, there'd be many teams looking to snap him up. And I'm not being funny, including yourselves. I think he's a quality head coach. And I don't think he's deserving of what he's have to put through, especially his health after what he's been put through last year with cancer. Then he goes back into training camp and half his players haven't even got vaccinated, and he has to basically say to them, I'm recovering cancer person, and then half the players don't even care. It just goes to show the whole situation there is an absolute mess.
Von Miller, Super Bowl MVP, traded to the Los Angeles Rams for a 2nd and 3rd round pick next year. The Broncos are going to pay 96% of his salary, but they get the picks. Broncos lose their face of their franchise. Inevitable column after 5 or 6 inept years where talent has been wasted on a daily basis. And I hope, and I'll say this publicly now on the 1st of November, I hope the Rams win the Super Bowl. I'd love to see Von Miller get another ring.
Yeah, obviously as a Bronco fan, look, the jersey over my head. Love to see Von do it, and it's a great move for Von, and seeing Von on that Rams defense. Should if he can stay fit, he should be able to make a real difference. They have a QB there who's certainly in the race for MVP, but you would have to say that it's going to be very interesting to see, because they went all in in 2018, and here we are again just a few years later, and they've gone all in again. So they're taking a completely different approach to the NFL than most teams, and I'm really fascinated to see how it goes for Von Miller. He had an incredible big start to his career in Denver, those first few years, culminating in that playoff run in Super Bowl 50. Since then, the Broncos have tried to recapture, lightning in a bottle. It hasn't worked, and I don't know what do you say? It's 9. The Broncos are essentially allowing Von Miller to leave and paying $9 million to get a 2nd and 3rd round pick. But you imagine, given how good the Rams are, those picks are going to be pretty low in the 2nd and 3rd round.
Well, the first thing I thought of today was to try to obviously clamour for the picks to allow themselves to be in a bargaining situation for the potential trade for the quarterback come the off season. But the difficulty there is none of those additional picks are first rounders. And the Eagles, if Wentz continues to play, will have 3 first rounders. And the Dolphins have got 2 first rounders. And the Giants, so I'm not saying the Giants are going to be the sweepstakes for a quarterback, they've got 2 first rounders. And there's another team I can't recall off the top of my head. So where does that leave them in the pecking order for a quarterback? I don't get the trade. I understand that am I right in saying if he stays to the end of the season, he's effectively a free agent, he walks away and they don't get anything for him? Okay, well, to a certain extent. But it's November the 1st. They've just won. It wasn't a great game, fair enough, but they won. They're 4-4. They're not out. You look at the situation, it's gas because the Patriots win. yesterday. And I know you might say the Patriots are going in a better direction than the Broncos right now, but there's fans out there. I get a few texts today saying, we could end up in a wildcard situation, and they're not too different to your record. So I just feel that they're giving up on the season very, very early, which I think is unfair to the fans, and I think it's unfair to the team because there's games there that they can win.
I think I'd say this. It's been 5 years. Same shite. Different year. It is what it is. If I am going to bed tomorrow night and Kareem Jackson, Cal Fuller, and Melvin Gordon are still wearing orange, what's the point in trading Von Miller? Sell the house now. Get down as low or get up as high as you need to, because it's bad enough when it's 4. Look at their schedule. Bar the Lions, they're not winning another game this season.
That's
no, but this is what happens when you have a stacked roster and you don't build around a quarterback. It's sad. It's inevitable. I want to give a shout out to Alistair at NI Bronco. How's it going, Alistair? Let us know where you're from in Northern Ireland. Devastated to see Vaughan go, but good luck. Rams defense looking seriously scary. Donald, Vaughan, Ramsey, Floyd. We'll talk about that because there's Sunday Night Football. Just based on what you said, Brian. Yeah, look, I think if you ask anybody in Denver, it's inevitable. Nothing's going to happen to this team sold anyway, but they have to do something. The thing that I'm mostly disappointed about is that Vic Fangio lasted longer. Very quick there from Owen. Is Von Miller past his best? He'd probably ball out in LA.
Well, I think it's a risk because I think he's struggling with injuries, and that's the difficulty. Is he going to be fully fit for the remainder of the season? Not to jump too. Sorry, I don't mean to jump off the top people. One point we didn't call out. Fred asked a question around. I think it was Fred asked a question around the Cowboys getting to 10 wins and having the division locked up. And we said it a few weeks ago. This division could be locked up by Thanksgiving. They actually play the Raiders on Thanksgiving, which is a great game. The problem I think there is, and I'm not saying it because I follow a team in the same division, and we've seen it in the past. What happens is you win the division a few weeks out from the end of the season and you start resting players. It's very hard to get your mojo back come the playoffs. And teams that are hot coming into the playoffs, we've seen it. The Broncos got hot at the right time. The Bucks got hot at the right time last year. And you'll see it again this year. Some team will come in having to win 4 or 5 of their last, 3 or 4 of their last games to get into the playoffs, are on a run, playing competitive games. And that's the difficulty I see for the Cowboys, that they could run into that situation where Dak is resting up, Cooper Rush is playing, and other players, and that could leave them exposed come the playoffs. But that's just a thought for further down the line.
Game picks, or Colin, do you want to add anything more to that? Are you okay?
Just I suppose in terms of this weekend's games, or include not including Thursday night, you would say that a lot of players did maybe some damage to their MVP hopes. Matthew Stafford potentially now the front runner. You'd have to say, but still plenty to go. Could Aaron Rodgers be a sneaky candidate to get in there?
I just want to make one point today. One final point that's not necessarily around games. It's actually Calvin Ridley. I don't know if you read the story today, but he's taken a step away from. He didn't play yesterday. It was a healthy scratch, as they call it, and it's come out today that he's having mental health problems, and I think it shouldn't be underestimated how difficult that can be for any player. He didn't go to London a few weeks ago, and he's come out today with a very honest assessment of the situation, saying until he gets healthy in his own mind, he doesn't feel he can best help the team. So, and Lane Johnson, I mean, the Eagles guys also come out in the past few days. So, we watched the game, we chew the fat over our players' performances, but we don't know what goes on in the background for these people personally. So, it's something that we should be, I think it's something we should call out today. So, hopefully, he has a speedy recovery. What's not an injury? Hopefully, he has a speedy recovery because he's a great player. And as you said earlier, we want to see the best players on the field.
Absolutely. Colin, do you want to sit up a wee bit? Yeah. All good. Yeah. Best wishes to Calvin Ridley as well. So I'm just getting tired. Very quickly, did our bet win, Brian? Yes or no?
No, didn't. We had the Chargers in there. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Irish NFL show code Matchbook are the sponsors. Thank you very much to Matchbook Betting Exchange for the weekly yo-yos in terms of the bet. £15, €15 welcome offer. It's time to make our picks ahead of tonight. The Chiefs are 3-4. Jesus, the Chiefs are 3-4 going up against the 2-5 New York or New Jersey Football Giants. Colin, I'll start with you. Who have you got?
The Chiefs. I heard Rich Eisen doing an interview with Patrick Mahomes, and he asked Mahomes, what's wrong with the Chiefs, and I would have to say that Mahomes' answer concerned me a little bit, because now maybe it's the Tom Brady thing that never want to say too much publicly, but it didn't sound like certainly Mahomes wasn't giving anything away. If the Chiefs have figured out what's wrong, Mahomes wasn't saying it publicly. So whether they have or not, we're going to see. There are a huge number of issues there, and yet you keep going. They are the Chiefs, and they should find a way to win. I'm going to back them because they are the Chiefs, but I do think the Giants are going to make it very difficult for them. And probably if the Chiefs don't win this, then it will absolutely sound alarm bells. And I think I will have to move away from being, they're the Chiefs. Surely they'll be able to figure it out at some point. They really need to get the win, and I think they will just about do enough tonight.
Last week, Andy Reid came out with that unusual statement after the game where he said, "I'm seeing things from this team I've never seen before in a negative light." And this defense, over the past 2 weeks, they've made changes to the team, and this is going to resolve the issues. Jordy Dan was out of the team, and other players were brought in, and we're going to see that all resolved. That hasn't been the case. And the Giants' defensive performance last week, which I was praying for weeks on end, because I felt like that defense that I saw last year was there waiting to come alive again, and it's underestimated how well they played last week with 6 sacks. And I think arguably one of the rookies of the year, second round pick, had 2.5 sacks. He's already on 6. He's more than quite a few of the players been around for a while. We got 6 sacks on the Panthers offense, which has been poor over the past few weeks, and that seems to be the team where the Panthers are not good. So therefore, let's not get too excited about that. But I feel that this Giants defense has got a point to prove again. And this game reminds me of last year when we went into Seattle. No one gave us a hope, and which was Mark's comment around Jesus Christ himself. Well, Jesus Christ is playing tonight, and that is Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, so I'm going with the shock. It's the team of the weekend. There's been loads of surprises, so I'm going to stick on the Giants hat, and I'm going to say tomorrow morning we'll have the same record as the Chiefs, and I'll be up all night. And if the Giants win, you'll know because your phones will be bouncing at 3:30 in the morning.
Mark is going with the Chiefs. Hi, Mark. Waddy says Giants will do the Chiefs. They're in free fall. There's loads of different comments here, lads. Thanks so much for the comments. I'm openly exhausted, so we'll probably get around to them in the next show. Really appreciate it. Waddy also saying Honey Badger's comments ain't encouraging from a team point of view. I want the Giants to win tonight for obvious reasons. I don't think my team that I support is going to get over 5 wins. So the more wins the Giants get, the more wins teams around that sort of hemisphere get, the better. The reality is there's 2 important points there. The first point is I'm 30-odd points behind Brian in fantasy, and my quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. And I have no other players to play.
You need 27 points, Michael, from Mahomes.
All right, well, I haven't counted it like that.
I did today.
I don't know,
Michael. Just to say, people might not be aware of Honey Badger's comments. He said that the Chiefs may have the most toxic fan base in the league.
Well,
it's the same fan base that have the Guinness Book of Records for the highest decimal rate in a stadium, which I believe actually came on a Monday night game. So I imagine it's going to be bouncing tonight, and it's going to be a difficult one offensively for the Giants to avoid.
Shout out to. Yeah.
Sorry, Michael, I'm jumping in on your pick. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Shout out to Irish Chiefs as well, big Belfast man. He seems confident enough tonight. I think he's nervous. Talk of a rain delay there as well. Who knows what's going to happen?
You what?
I'm taking the Chiefs, but sorry.
You what? Rain delay? This is the only week of the season we get a game starting at 12 o'clock, and you're talking about rain delays.
There's heavy rain in Kansas City at the minute. I'm just saying it hasn't been talked about too much, but there are people in the tailgate talking about it at the moment. It might clear up by kickoff. I'm taking the Chiefs to win this. I think, to be honest with you, there's a number of different factors here. It's the talk around the Chiefs. It's the talk around, when I'm sitting here going, haha, they're 3-4. I think Mahomes, the lads, are going to look at this as a game that they have to win comfortably. And I think they will, based upon that, and also based upon looking at the Chargers last night. They need to win this game. I don't know how many points Daniel Jones and the Giants are going to put up, but I think Mahomes will play out of his skin tonight. I really do. And I don't want him to, but I think this is the sort of game where he gets back to level again, and they need to win. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs tonight. I hope they get beat, but they probably won't. And that's it. That's it. Any final comments or any?
I hope somebody can screenshot Brian's reaction to you saying rain delay, because his face was priceless.
I swear to God, I typed in.
I was thinking, this is how you get
Like,
your team on a Monday night. We get your team on a Monday night, and it's a 12:15 kickoff, and you're thinking, "Oh, that's grand. I'll be tired in the morning, but it's a reasonably early kickoff." And you're talking about rain delays.
There's talk of rain. There's one band of rain moving through before the game, so it might be delayed a little bit, so it's fine. Let's see what happens.
Might as well get the beers out. So,
well, this is the thing. It's on early, so if you want to watch the first quarter, you can have a laugh, go to bed like Brian will, or fall asleep like me last night watching the Cowboys game. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're watching it, I hope you enjoy the game tonight. We'll be back on Thursday night. Maybe we'll be back tomorrow night. I don't know. I'll check in with these boys and see if they're allowed to come on live tomorrow night, and we'll keep you updated. Just obviously thanks to everybody for the comments here, folks. Loads of comments, loads of viewers. Really appreciate it. 1 year in, and appreciate it, lads. See you on Thursday night. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Like tomorrow is going to be really interesting to see if anything does top that Von Miller trade, but. There might well be something. It was obvious the Rams were working on something when they sent the linebacker to the Broncos. Might be other teams doing similar.
Could be an impromptu show tomorrow night if we get some serious moves tomorrow.
And Brian's hosting it by himself. Good night, folks.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless. Good luck.
Hey, baby. You want to come take a ride with the Mississippi Mud Flat?